Welcome to the Insight Meditation community of Charlottesville, Virginia. You can find all of our program offerings and information about our Sangha at www.imeditation.org. We meet weekly on Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, currently on the Zoom platform for meditation and a Dharma talk given by one of our teachers. We also meet daily at noon Eastern Time on Zoom for sitting practice. We hope you can join us.
To begin our evening tonight, in the evening of honoring Anna, Marylouise, and Liz, our new teachers, we thought it might be fun to reflect for a few minutes on IMCC, Insight Meditation Community of Charlottesville, its origins, history, and lineage. And this has been a fun exercise for me, just thinking back, and because it was 1994 or 95 that I was invited by some of the teachers at the Spirit Rock Meditation Center in California to be part of what became known as the Community Dharma Leaders Program. It was new, and its purpose was to longtime Vipassana meditation practitioners to be trained by the more senior teachers with the hope that we would start teaching on a more regular basis. Because at the time, if you think back to the mid-90s, the interest in contemplative practices was just beginning to take off. And the kind of national thinking was that it'd be good to have decentralized centers. That seemed like a good idea to try to meet this growing interest. Our meditation group started, I believe, in 1996. And that was at the Jefferson Area Board for Aging's large meeting room. Many of you are familiar with it, probably almost all of you. And a good friend, Gordon Walker, he was the executive director at JABA at the time. And he gave us just a sweetheart deal to have that room for a whole night. I think our original rent was like $25, which was a stretch for us at the time, but we did fine. So we started, and originally I taught every week, and then I learned that my friend Sharon Beckman Brinley was leading a group of therapists in what she called unconditional presence, which to a large extent was cultivating meditation practice. So I invited her to join the fun and share in the teaching responsibilities. And shortly thereafter, I can't remember how long it was, but it wasn't long at all, we discovered that there was this woman teaching meditation at the Quest bookstore. And we heard she had a really strong background and she had spent time in a Zen monastery. So we invited Susan Stone to join us and teach. And the numbers grew on Tuesday. We decided at some point along the way to become a 501c3 religious nonprofit. And that's when we became IMCC. Dale Abrahams, he was instrumental in organizing all of this with the government, the paperwork, et cetera. And he became our first president of the board. And he served for many years as we grew. Both Susan and Sharon then went on to complete the Community Dharma Leaders training, the same training that I had gotten at Spirit Rock. And next down the pike came Allie, Rudolph, and Teresa Miller. They were also graduates of the CDL program. A few years later, or a number of years later, Cheryl Duke came on as our second board president. And she was a force for us becoming a more sophisticated organization, if you could call us that. And lastly, of course, Jeff came on, and he's been our board president for, seems like forever, but it's been a long time. He's he's really helped to expand our offerings both internally and out into the community. During the reign of Jeff Frazier, we've hired Judy Harmon to really support our many programs and all the stuff that we do. So thank you, Jeff. May you live a long life and stay with us. Over these 24 years, we've been served by many fabulous board members. I'd love to name them all, but there's too many for me to do that now. And each of them added their own unique flavor to the soup. And IMCC's outreach in the community took a leap in 2004, I believe it was, when Susan Stone and I were invited to teach at the women's prison by Julie Commissar, a regular at IMCC, who at the time, she was a therapist at the women's prison and felt meditation would be helpful. Since then, the program at Fluvanna has been served by many IMC teachers and senior students over the years, and will resume under the steerage of Heather Karp when COVID relaxes. IMCC was one of the original supporters of the Pride Festival. We always are having a booth there. And IMC teachers for years made up the majority of the teaching faculty at UVA's MBSR program, with Allie, Susan, and Teresa, the mainstays of that program for many years. And nowadays, IMCC teachers and board members are active in the clergy collective, with Sharon and Susan Kaufman taking strong roles there. We're currently considering joining Impact, which you'll hear about soon. That decision hasn't been made, but it's on the table, and we want you all to hear about it. And as most of you know, we have a robust offering of numerous racial affinity groups, which, not to toot our own horn too much, have become a model for Sanghas throughout the Western world. There are a bunch of other community functions IMCC has been involved with or is involved in now: tree planting, Patcham, Common Ground. There's more, but I'm old, and calling up these memories, all of them, is a challenge. In 2012, Tar Brock, myself, Hugh Byrne, and Jonathan Faust put together a 2-year teacher training program, not unlike the Community Dharma Leader program. It was called the Meditation Teacher Training Institute. We limited to those folks who not only were qualified, in other words, long-term practitioners, but who were willing to drive to our monthly meetings, which we held near DC. So these folks came from Virginia, DC, Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, primarily. I think one person came from New York. But locally, the ones that you will know and recognize: Jeff Frazier was in that group, Heather Karp, David Silver, Christina Weaver, Helen Farr. Those are the ones who regularly or occasionally teach at IMCC. And later on, IMCC was gifted by 2 outstanding veteran meditation teachers who moved to Charlottesville: Jackie Erskine from Maryland and Jeanne van Gemert from North Carolina. So it's been quite a ride. And IMCC, I mean, we've been honored to have many of the finest Dharma teachers in America visit us here. And there's a lengthy list on the website if you're interested to see who's come by. So really, lots of hands have brought IMCC to this point in time. But really, IMCC is part of a continuous lineage that began 2,600 years ago with the Buddha and the Sangha that formed with him. With these teachings, I mean, these teachings were carried forward through some very challenging times in history by generations of dedicated nuns, monks, and lay people. And if you think about it, it makes me smile, brought forward right to this evening, virtually on Zoom. Today I was imagining the amazed reactions of those early Sangha folks. If they could see us all now zooming away on these magical devices. So as a result of all the efforts of these 2,600 years, we have the joyous occasion to celebrate our newest teachers. And of course, teaching the Dharma does carry responsibility. In some sense, it's the responsibility to all those who've carried it so far. Responsibilities in terms of our compassion with those we are teaching, with our personal integrity and how we carry our life. It's the full deal. So thank you all for tuning in tonight.
Thanks, Pat. It just gives me joy to kind of reminisce there about all of our travels over the years. Part of our travels over the last several years, we've started to realize that we need more teachers, and partly because there are so many programs, there are so many things, different opportunities we want to offer, and we need more folks to help carry them. And partly because we're getting old. Some of us original folks are getting old, and we need folks to carry it on. And so we fumbled around a little bit and decided to organize a little training group for the people who were interested in becoming new teachers. And Jeanne, bless you, Jeanne. Jeanne actually stepped into the leadership of that in the most amazing way. You may or may not know that Jeanne actually lived in Charlottesville many years ago, and she has the most amazing background. She's an artist, a massage and energy therapist. She's a psychotherapist, a yoga, MBSR, and meditation teacher. And she's been doing all of those things for decades. It would take way longer than I have to describe in more detail all of her gifts and accomplishments. She moved away some years ago, and in about 2.5 years ago, I like to think we prevailed on her. I think there were many reasons why she came back to Charlottesville, but Jeanne moved back to Charlottesville, and we immediately were delighted to invite her into our teaching community. She's been an outstanding presence and teacher and guide. She has mentored these aspiring teachers for the last year and has just been an amazing presence. I asked them to tell me about her and to tell me about their experience with her. And these are some of the things that they said, often more than once, that she was a remarkable presence, just presence through their passage. That Jeanne created a warm space of deep learning, very personal reflection, and ongoing and collective dialogue within a safe and supportive community. And Jeanne created that space. They felt that they were each able to explore their own doubt, their own fears, their own uncertainties, and their own questions with freedom and integrity. Jeanne suggested readings. She responded to questions. She offered her own extensive Dharma experience, really extensive, all the while encouraging each person to value their own perspective, thoughts, and their own experience of the materials that they were inquiring into. Somebody said, I could have continued forever in this group, this training group. Jeanne became a teacher, my mentor, and friend. I am deeply grateful for her encouragement and support, and for the generosity, humility, and wisdom with which she offered all of those. So we're all just deeply grateful to you, Jeanne, for what you have offered, what you have created, and the gift that you continue to be in our community. So thank you for what you've done, and I think you will take over and then introduce the new teachers from here.
Well, goodness. Thank you. I thought it was going to be just a short little. Thank you. And it's been a total honor. It's been a total honor for me. So before I introduce the new teachers, Marylouise Kelley, Liz Reynolds, and Anna Vanhoy, I want to acknowledge the mentors they met with every month. Marylouise with Teresa Miller, Liz with Sharon, and Anna with Jeff Frazier. I also want to acknowledge that nothing would happen at IMCC without our administrator, Judy Harmon. And you know, none of us, oh, more applause for Judy, I like that. None of us are ever finished learning. This is true for the new teachers and true for the whole Sangha. We continue to learn individually and together. The new teachers and I spent this entire year as a training for these women who had already studied mindfulness to become thoroughly acquainted with its Buddhist underpinnings, as well as gaining deeper understanding of the dynamics of teaching. During this year's study, these three new teachers attended every meeting, read a lot, and I mean really, really read, not just glossed over things, but really got into it. Kept journals about thoughts they had about integrating the material into their own lives, and we had super lively discussions. So I want to tell you some of what they studied. Their readings included chapters from the Buddha's words. So this is an anthology of discourses from the Pali Canon. These suttas are really difficult to read. You can see how big this book is. In part, they're so dense. So it was helpful to read in part and wrestle them together. They learned how to navigate the website, Access to Insight, and took a tricycle series with Andrew Holacek, Transforming Obstacles into Opportunities. They heard presentations followed by discussions by Sharon on teaching the Dharma and by Allie Rudolph on emptiness and non-self. They read and discussed the following books. So this is the Noble Eightfold Path by Bhikkhu Bodhi. If there were one book that you were going to read, this would be it. This is a great description of the Noble Eightfold Path. Another book was The Issue at Hand by Gil Fronsdal. Another was Trauma-Informed Mindfulness by David Treleaven. And I don't have a copy of that book, but it's about this thick, this size book. And people got a huge amount out of that. Another one of the favorite books, which I don't seem to have here, is In Love with the World by Gaemin Garwin Bache. And if you don't know this book or this story, it's a beauty. Young Gaemin was an abbot of the Turgar Institute, which had a huge monastery in India and 2 in Europe. And about 7 years ago, and I remember when this happened, suddenly he disappeared. And all the people that worked with him and knew him said they didn't know what happened, that he just had disappeared. But nobody seemed very worried, which I thought was a little strange. As it turned out, he went into homelessness as the Buddha had done and wandered through India. And they didn't tell anyone that was happening because they didn't want anyone following him. I mean, I could just see the Parapasi, tracking him down. Anyway, it's a compelling page turner of a read with a lot of insight and a lot of heart. Another book was One Dharma by Joseph Goldstein, and it's about the similarities of all the Buddhist paths. And then yet another one, is a modern book, American Dharma by Anne Gleig. And it talks about Buddhism, an account of where Buddhism was, is, and is going in America. She's from Liverpool and has a very interesting outside of America point of view. They read articles by Thanissaro Bhikkhu and Bhikkhu Bodhi, as well as readings from Dharma Seed and various national teachers' websites. They fully deserve the honor of this graduation. So I'll introduce each of them, and then each will speak a bit. Marylouise Kelley began her meditation practice and sat retreats at the Insight Meditation Community of Washington, studying with Tara Brach, Jonathan Faust, and several visiting teachers. In 2017, she completed the Year of Living Mindfully Intensive Practice program with senior teacher Jonathan Faust, then served as a mentor for the next year's cohort. And in January, this coming January, she'll complete the 2-year mindfulness meditation teacher certification program with Tara Brach and Jack Cornfield. This year, she's treasured the Dharma study with peers and mentors that has been the focus of our year-long IMCC Aspiring Teacher Program. And at IMCC this year, Marylouise taught 2 Introduction to Mindfulness meditation classes and is guiding noon meditations. She's actively involved with IMCC's racial affinity groups and is part of the IMCC team for Ruth King's Racial Affinity Group Development Program. Marylouise particularly loved the opportunity to teach meditation classes at Fluvanna Correctional Center for Women and the Women's Initiative, and she hopes to return once classes resume post-pandemic. Liz Reynolds was born and raised in East Tennessee and has always felt at home around the mountains of the Southern Appalachians. As a result of her deep ancestral connection to the Southern US, Liz began to study race relations during college and believes that white people working with the legacy of enslavement in our country is a powerful and necessary journey. She's traveled a colorful path as an adult, spending time living and working in Russia, Japan, Greece, Germany, and several US states. She began her meditation practice shortly after moving to the Russian Far East and has been continually grateful for wisdom offered from practices and traditions from many Asian lineages throughout her adult life. Liz loves her flock of backyard chickens, long hikes in deep woods, astrology, and relationships with family and friends that she says keeps her honest and continually growing. Anna Vanhoy has been a member of IMCC for about 8 years. She's practiced mindful meditation for 15 years and participated in teacher trainings for mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, with Jon Kabat-Zinn. She's a teacher in training in mindful self-compassion, having attended in-person instruction with Kristen Neff and Chris Germer. And is a licensed social worker with over 25 years experience in both public and private settings. She's invested in helping others learn how mindfulness and self-compassion can create a healthier, more contented life, and teaches a course in mindfulness self-compassion at Mary Baldwin University. Something new is that Anna now offers a weekly online guided meditation for all the faculty and staff at Mary Baldwin, and is a member of a group working to bring mindful programming to the university as a whole. She lives in Stanton with her husband and assorted pets, and has 2 grown sons. So let me turn it over now to each of them.
Thank you, Jeanne. I think I start us off. So I have to begin by saying thank you to this community. It feels as though this is a Sangha that has been so warm and supportive to me, and that it also constantly challenges me to grow. And that's the edge that I always like to live on, that continual growth curve. So this last year has been wonderful for me. I also have to say thank you to the leadership at IMCC for conceiving of this Aspiring Teachers program, for your generosity in sharing your knowledge. I mean, there's been support from the board, from the guiding teachers. And I felt this has really been necessary for me to just develop the knowledge, the experience, and the confidence to step into these roles. So I appreciate your vision and making this happen. This is a really unique program. I talk with my peers in my teacher training program from other cities, and they really admire the way that I've had the opportunity to have to study the Dharma in this group, to work with mentors, and to have this introduction into teaching. So I think it's unique and very special, and something that IMCC can be proud of. And I know we've talked about Jeanne's role, but I really want to thank her for being such a wise teacher and guide, and opening my eyes to these essential teachings, and allowing us to grow at our own speed, and encouraging us to be brave when we didn't want to be. All of that was essential. To Teresa Miller, who stood by me and would sit with me once a month and help guide me through what else I needed to learn, but particularly to help me look internally at my motivation for doing this, for teaching, and what I want to bring to the Dharma seed. And finally, I have to thank all of my peers, my friends with whom I learned. We learned from each other, gave each other, everybody was just a generous spiritual friend and gave each other unconditional support. And I really needed that to make this leap of faith. So it's been wonderful to study with you and with Fred Moss and Christina Weaver, who sat with us. It was wonderful. So I didn't start along this path of teaching with the goal of teaching in front of a large room. In fact, as I left a career that I found to be really rewarding, but totally consuming, my goal was just to continue deepening my practice. And I entered teacher training thinking that I would just continue to learn and practice, and that it would be a lifelong pursuit. But I found that every time I taught, I challenged myself to learn more, and I grew in my own practice, and it started to excite me. So as I look forward to teaching, I think of the comment that when we take the Dharma seat, we often are talking to ourselves. And I find that, this practice is personal. We each bring our life experience to the teachings, and our practice and perhaps our teaching tends to reflect what we need most in each moment. So there's that personal growth. But it's also important to me that my practice is not just about making my life better. I've come to see that more importantly, this practice is interconnected to other practitioners, to the world around us, and that it's rooted in the world in which we live and in the context of people's lives, their histories, their sufferings, their joys, and that ultimately practice should help us to understand our connection with common humanity. So that's the way that I hope to practice and to teach. I see this as continuing my life's work. I spent my career advocating for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault and other forms of interpersonal violence. And my instinct has always been to stand with those who are struggling. And we all struggle. But that may be why I'm drawn to our community's work, doing the racial affinity groups, and why I feel to the teaching that our community does for the meditation classes at the Fluvanna Prison for Women. So I take this seat with all humility and knowing that this community is full of deep practitioners and that we all have life lessons to share that enrich our practice, and that we grow by sitting together in community, learning from one another. So I commit to caring, to connection, and to continued learning. And to appreciate that sharing these teachings is an honor and a gift. So thank you to the entire IMCC community for your support and for opening your arms to us. To you, Liz.
Thanks, Marylouise. And hello, everyone. I'm Liz. So I'm feeling humbled and intimidated and very grateful tonight. I reflected a good bit on what my intentions are for the future of my involvement in INCC. And what came to me was quite simple. I began my practice almost exactly 10 years ago in the fall of 2010. And since then, there has been one guiding intention for me over that decade. And that has been to see more clearly. I've wanted that more than anything else. And in life, it seems to me like there is just so many obscurations, so many things that cloud our vision. And my practice has been the single most powerful tool in cutting through some of those veils to see more clearly. So as I move forward, and begin to share teachings in our community, really that's the only intention I can bring. My own personal intention is what I can offer for our community as well, to foster more clear sight for us all. And it's been my experience that in spiritual practice, in my own spiritual practice, there are certain doorways or entry points that grab us, that really resonate. and feel juicy or charged in some way. So over the past decade, there have been 3 of those doorways for me, and I'm just going to briefly mention them. They've been a major focus of energy for me, and I can only assume that they'll continue to be. So the first of these is a firm grounding in metta and karuna. Metta being loving kindness practice, and karuna being compassion practice. As Sharon has said countless times to all of us, but I've heard her loud and clear, we are such fragile beings. And any amount of time that we can spend cultivating loving kindness and compassion for ourselves and for others seems to be time very well spent. The second of my doorways to practice has been embodied practice. Finding connection to my own body's wisdom, to the way that my body knows things and experiences life, has been truly transformational for me. It's been challenging and joyful and inspiring. And it's my intention to bring us back to our bodies, bring myself back to my body often. And last of these doorways is to center justice. It's been my experience, and I'm a firm believer that the Dharma offers us great wisdom and insight in understanding this world that seems full of so much injustice so much of the time. And I have a firm intention to center racial justice, economic justice, environmental justice, and to continually bring myself back to the way that my personal practice is the same as the practice that we have out in the world. So I gratefully and humbly state these intentions, and really sincerely thank you for your support. Anna?
Well, just really want to say thank you to my other fellow aspiring and now teachers, and love hearing those intentions. So just wanted to say that I was touched by a comment that I read from Gil Fronsdale that said ancient texts say that no one comes to the Buddhist path except through suffering. And that really stood out for me. I thought that was really powerful. When I was a child, my very cool and very wise big sister used to tell me I was Zen, and I had no idea what that was. She told me, she called me this because for all living things. And I used to spend hours outside just watching nature. And I became very sad when I would run across something that seemed to be suffering, and I wished I could fix it. And I remember one year when I was in elementary school, I spent many hours carrying bagworm caterpillars across the road in front of my house so they would not get run over. And I couldn't save them all, but I would try and save as many as I could. I didn't follow up on my sister's designation for me for a very long time, though that concern for the suffering of others led me to become a social worker and a therapist. But in 2006, I had the great opportunity to take a mindfulness-based stress reduction class with Charmy Neely, and it changed my life. And in 2007, I was thrilled to be able to spend a week at the Omega Institute for training with Jon Kabat-Zinn on how to teach MBSR. And since then, much of my learning and practice has been on my own and interspersed with online courses. So the opportunity to join fellow journeyers, I guess, in the Sangha is, I am just deeply grateful. I remember one point, about 5 years ago, I finally got the courage to attend a silent retreat. It actually was very hard for me to get the nerve to do that through IMCC. And I was anxious and my back was hurting terribly. And honestly, it was an awful experience. And it was also one of the best experiences of my life. I remember at one point, and this really sticks out for me, sitting in the dining hall and looking around at all the other souls who were carefully savoring their food. I thought, I have found my people. And then later in the meditation hall, a feeling came over me. I am home. So I'm sure many of you don't know me personally. As Jeanne said, I live in Stanton. I've been raising my 2 sons, so I've not been a regular participant at meetings and gatherings at IMCC, but IMCC remains my home in my heart. I have taught a course in mindfulness and self-compassion at Mary Baldwin University for several years now. I'm always blown away by the end of the semester. I'm grading papers right now. At what we get to learn from the students, the things that they have developed, what they've picked up. Anyway, it's really remarkable. And still working to bring mindfulness to more of the university. So as a therapist and as a teacher, I'm exposed to pain of others. And before learning about mindfulness and self-compassion and Dharma, I lacked the depth of tools to hold my seat enough to be a compassionate presence without becoming overwhelmed after a while. And at one of the IMCC retreats, Sharon gave me an equanimity practice that allowed me to let go of holding on to the self so tightly that I thought I had to fix others' suffering to manage my own. And this practice is foundational for me now. And it goes like this. All beings are the owners of their karma. Their happiness and unhappiness depend on their actions, not on my wishes for them. No matter how much I might wish to be otherwise, things are as they are. Although I wish only the best for you, I also know that your happiness and unhappiness depends on your actions, not on my wishes for you. Whether I understand it or not, things are unfolding according to ancient and natural law. I'm deeply grateful to the teachers of IMCC for the opportunity to train under their guidance. I'm particularly grateful for Pat to inviting me to participate in the Aspiring Teachers Training. To Jeff, my ever patient and wise mentor, who's offered abundant guidance and support. And to Jeanne for her incredible holding of our little group, pointing out where to go and allowing us to find our way. One of the profound lessons I learned in the past year is the nature of right speech and how being authentic in all areas is a gift to self and to others. So with that in mind, honestly, I do not feel ready to call myself a teacher at IMCC, nor do I feel I have the knowledge of the Dharma to guide others in a wise manner, and I have much to learn. But I acknowledge the generosity of time and effort by the IMCC teachers and my fellow aspiring teachers, and so gratefully arrive here in this moment to graduate. Thank you.
Sharon, would you like to say a few words about the refuges?
Mm-hmm. One of the practices that Buddhists through the centuries have offered at times of celebration is a ceremony of taking refuge. Tonight we celebrate these new teachers who will each, as we've heard, give their own unique voices to the Buddhist teachings as those teachings manifest for us in our modern and challenging lives, our days. We humbly join together with all of the students of the Buddha who have gone before us and who for thousands of years have marked occasions such as these with the formal taking of refuge. Each person's commitment to cultivate and to find an abiding center and reference point in teachings and practices that offer guidance and nurturance to us all. So, what does refuge mean for us? There are three places of refuge. One is refuge in the Buddha. Like each of us. He was a real human being who struggled as we do, and who, through his own diligent and faithful inquiry and practice, found the way of freedom and peace. His teachings told us, I found freedom. You can too. You can too. Taking refuge in the Buddha, then, is also affirming and taking refuge in our own, each of us, in our own fundamental goodness and wisdom and beauty. And of course, the extension of that is taking refuge in the fundamental goodness of all beings, everywhere, even tent caterpillars. So taking refuge, we take refuge in the Buddha. We take refuge in the Dharma, a commitment to patiently cultivating a knowing of the way things actually are, moment to moment. It's like this now. And allowing ourselves to discover what else might be needed as a process of discovery, not as rules and commandments, but as real inquiry into where's suffering, where's the end of suffering. We take refuge in a path that teaches us a steadiness of heart that can know anxiety and confusion just as they are. And in the very same practice, a knowing of wonder and mystery and the gladness of an open heart. We take refuge in letting go of insisting that things be a certain way. We take refuge in the teachings, in the Dharma. And the third refuge is the refuge in the Sangha. Formally, historically, it's a remembering of gratitude for the monastics and teachers who have dedicated over all these centuries their very lives to sustaining these teachings. So the formal understanding of refuge in the Sangha is really refuge in the protection of those beings. In our modern times, we widen our understanding of Sangha to take refuge in our current teachers and guides, those leaders who inspire us, and also in our good friends, those who set kind and wise and generous example and who help us each every single day to align with the truths of wisdom and compassion. So 3 refuges that we take as part of our celebration in the Buddha, in the Dharma, in the Sangha. Susan will chant them in Pali for us in the language of the Buddha. Jeanne then will chant them in English, our language. And then she'll invite anyone who wishes to repeat them in English so we can all take refuge together. So Susan.
Thank you, Sharon. And I'll just say that in monasteries in Asia, they are certainly here as well, Buddhist monasteries, they say the refuges every day, once in Pali, totally, and once in English, totally. So it just becomes a natural part of the way that they live. And so today we're doing that, and I'll start off with an invocation. Jeanne will say it in English, so you won't be lost about what we're doing, and we'll go from there. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa.
So I'll repeat those 3 times in English. So this is sort of the invocation. Homage to the blissful one, the worthy one, the fully enlightened one. Homage to the blissful one, the worthy one, the fully enlightened one. Homage to the blissful one, the worthy one, the fully enlightened one.
Now I will say the refuges in Pali, the 3 refuges. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami.
So then I'll repeat them in English. I'll say them once, it's just 3 lines, and then I'll make a gesture like this. And if you choose, if you can join me in repeating those 3. So I go to the Buddha for refuge. I go to the Dhamma for refuge. I go to the Sangha for refuge. I go to the Buddha for refuge. I go to the Dhamma for refuge. I go to the Sangha for
refuge. Thank you. The second time. Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami.
A second time, I go to the Buddha for refuge. A second time, I go to the Dhamma for refuge. A second time, I go to the Sangha for refuge. A second time, I go to the Buddha
for refuge.
A second time, I go to the for refuge. A second time, I go to the Sangha for refuge.
Thank you. And now a third time. Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Dhamma saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami.
And a third time, I go to the Buddha for refuge. A third time, I go to the Dharma for refuge. A third time, I go to the Sangha for refuge.
A third time,
I go to
I
the
go to the Buddha for refuge.
A third
time,
I
I go to Dharma for refuge.
A third time,
Third
I go
time,
to the
I go
Sangha.
to the Sangha.
For refuge. Thank you, Jeanne. I'll just make one more comment, and you'll notice all of this was in 3 times. That was simply the custom in the Buddha's time, and we carry it down today, 3 times repeating everything. So thank you. And now we're going to make a transition. We've had a beautiful ceremony and welcome for our 3 new teachers.
So I'll invite us all to begin to settle in to our spaces. I can see us doing that now. And we'll take some moments first to notice the ground that's underneath this body. The ground can take many forms. And yet, however the ground presents it is support for us. So we might notice the points of contact that this body is making. The points of contact that are supporting our bodies. We might notice the bottom of the pelvis, the backs of the thighs, we might bring some awareness to our feet. We might find that our feet are slightly clenched. And there could be an allowing for these feet to more fully feel supported by the ground. And sensing into the stability of this body. The way that the ground is sharing its solidity, its support with us. We might notice the weight of this body. Feel the weight of the legs anchoring us to the ground. Noticing the weight of the hands in the lap. Giving some of our precious attention to this relationship between our bodies and the ground that supports us. And from this place of greater settledness, we might take note of the presence of real earth, actual dirt, somewhere deep below us. coming into an awareness that this very piece of earth has a history, has offered shelter and refuge to many, many peoples before us. And that our presence here on this piece of earth connects us to those who have come before. Here in Virginia, where many of us are this evening, it's quite possible that the earth directly underneath us helped to build the institution of slavery, linking us to that legacy of separation. This very earth was also home to the Monacan people for centuries, linking us here tonight to the memory of wise relationship between human beings and this home of our earth. And expanding our field of awareness, we might sense this relationship, this patch of earth beneath us, connects ourselves to all beings who find shelter and home on other patches of this same earth. And tonight, especially noting the origins of these teachings, this Dharma that we share and from which we benefit so deeply. Perhaps offering some gratitude, some acknowledgement from each of these beings here tonight to the generations of Asian contemplatives who nurtured and preserved these teachings for the benefit of all beings, past, present, and future.
And as we feel our bodies centered solidly on this earth, we're reminded that we do not stand alone. Remembering that beside us, within us, and around us are our loved ones, our families, our ancestors who came before us and bless our lives. May we be well, be peaceful, and at ease. Remembering that beside, within, and around us are our friends, our mentors, our Sangha. May we be well, be peaceful, and at ease. Remembering that beside, within, and around us are our neighbors, our colleagues, our community. May we all be well, be peaceful, and at ease. And remembering that beside, within, and around us are the living beings who inhabit this earth and breathe this air as we do. May we be well, be peaceful, and at ease. May we all belong. And now allowing your breath awareness to bring you back home to the sensations of your body. Just taking a moment to rest and enjoy the sensation of breathing. And perhaps bringing to mind one particular person for whom you are grateful. It might be somewhat difficult to choose one. Just allowing yourself to settle and rest your awareness of one particular being. And that could be someone in your family or a friend. Could just be someone who smiles at you when you are walking down the street. Or it could even be a beloved pet. And as you form the image of this person or being in your mind, allowing yourself to become aware of where in your body do you feel that gratitude for that being. What does it feel like to be grateful for this being? You might notice that a smile comes to your lips. You may notice that maybe your heart softens just a little. Maybe there's a warmth associated with this experience of gratitude. And as you begin to notice these sensations, see if it's possible to allow them to grow within you, to spread. In the same way that you might blow on a small fire to encourage it to grow, really allow that feeling to spread all through your body. Letting it fill you, nurture it, savor it, enjoy. Enjoy the experience of connection. Letting it reach all the way to your fingertips and your toes. Again, just imagining this being is part of you. As you breathe in,
The air that you breathe is full of connection. And as you breathe out, you're sharing the gift of your presence. And perhaps resting for a few moments in that in-breath and out-breath. The body sensation of awareness, of connection. And if you like, you can expand that awareness to the appreciation of the connection to the people around you, for the Sangha, for the people nearby and far away. And for the connection to the earth beneath your feet. And again, enjoying and savoring the sensation.
And as we rest between the in-breath and the out-breath, feeling ourselves, may we stay aware of our equanimity, our grounding, our interconnectedness, and our gratitude for this very precious life. May we honor these new teachers for their hard and heartfelt work in learning the Dharma so they might teach it both in and outside of our Sangha. May we honor our Sangha for supporting their development and for supporting us all. May we honor ourselves and all other beings striving to be healthy, safe in these difficult times. May we and all beings feel ease, comfort, and safety. And may the merit of this practice be for the benefit of all. Thank you.